hate to say it because I feel like it sounds cliche, but the Taj Mahal is the most remarkable thing I've ever seen in my life, hands down. I think I expected to be excited to see the Taj Mahal. I expected to be interested in learning about the history. I never expected to be floored. Just really knocked over by the beauty of that place. I think when people think of the Taj Mahal, they think of the actual, central structure, the actual mausoleum. But that entire palace structure, from the entry gates, the mosque, the grounds that were just so beautifully kept, the waterways, I think the intentionality that went into building that space on a river, and keeping it the way it's been kept really was just such an amazing experience to see. I felt very emotional in that space. And I have to say that also visiting the Taj Mahal was a really interesting place in the trip for me. I think I'd been very overwhelmed every day by just the sights and sounds and energy of Delhi. So going to Agra, even on our train ride, which was, itself its own experience, going to Agra and going to this just idyllic place away from the city was perfectly timed for me. I needed to be there. I needed space. And the Taj Mahal. It makes sense why people come from all over the world and why people come from all over India. I was so happy to see that the majority of people there seemed to be coming from other parts of India. I just thought that was really beautiful.
Which village or city were you most impressed with that you visited?
Oh, what was the name of the village? So in Sanapat, we visited a village of Sevli, which was a tour that was led by students from Jindal. They had been volunteering at the schools in this village. And when we arrived in the village, we split up. Some people stayed in the school and some people toured the town. And I went on a tour of this town just with one of the town leaders. He just walked us through the streets. We went and met his brother and some of his family members. We saw the fields where they grow various crops throughout the year. We had a quite harrowing encounter with a bull, a very angry bull on the street, which was intense. We saw his wrestling studio where he teaches young boys wrestling to try to keep them out of trouble.
Now, who's he?
I don't know his name. He was one of the village leaders, a man who I believe, if he was not the mayor, he was just, he was one of the leaders in this village of Sevli. He didn't speak any English. His information was being conveyed to us through one of the students from the university, and he took us to a temple. He took us to their small village temple, where they have a Shivli, which is a manifestation of the god Shiva. And we went inside this temple, and just had a moment of reflection. We all rang a bell and offered blessings, and it was again. I hate to go back to this, but it really was perfectly timed for me. I was so overwhelmed on that leg of the trip in Delhi, and visiting this village where we got to interact with people one-on-one, where we weren't in a big coach being, busting our way through a neighborhood. We weren't being hurried around by a tour guide, which our tour guides have been wonderful, but being on an obvious tour as the standout Americans, being led by a tour guide who is greasing palms and clearing the way for us is a very different thing than being in the heart of a village and meeting the people there, meeting the kids at the school, seeing the mothers out just running their errands and speaking to them. It was, I think, the first real experience I had of seeing normal life in India, of course, normal life was happening in the city. I saw it all the time, but it was just so en masse that I never felt that I could really recognize it. But in the village, I feel like I could really recognize and kind of get a sense of what life looked like, how people lived, what their homes looked like, how students went to school every day, you know, riding their bikes or walking to school with family and friends. And it definitely was the first time I really felt that I wasn't quite so much a voyeur. I wasn't quite so much, you know, a tourist that was taking in poverty or taking in, you know, the extremes of India. I was just kind of a visitor, seeing normal life and being welcomed. I think that was the most important part, that the welcoming that happened made it feel safe, and it made me feel less of an intruder. And that was really beautiful.